What's going on? What is up, my ninjas? I'm Strydent, and I wanted to give you a little intro before the video or the review. I'm not a Star Wars fan. There's things in Star Wars that I like, and that's what kind of keeps me interested. But I noticed that with this film, the reviews have been really unrealistic. And a lot of people, the majority of people, have been swayed by nostalgia, something that I don't have for this series. And I'm going to tell it how it is. A lot of times what I've noticed is that the hype machine, is what kind of sways everything. And you're going to hear me talk about that to a great deal in this review, because I'm tired of the hype machine. You know, a good design is a good design, you know what I mean? Good situations, good setup, everything is, that's good. But when you're unoriginal, you gotta call it how it is. And this movie is not very original, considering it is one in many of a very original series, if that makes sense. You know, the first one was original, second one very original, third very original. And then they made prequels, also original stories. But then this one just pretty much follows the beats of the first one and then inserts new things in there. And the new things still play to the same strengths that the original ones had. So it's not like you're really getting a brand new story. And if you're a so-called fan of all this Star Wars stuff, then this should be first and foremost on your reviews. You should be pointing out that they didn't take any chances. It was extremely safe. And I don't think that something this well known, I mean, this is one of the most well-known American pop culture iconic films, you know what I mean? And how could you not give us new shit, you know what I mean? And if anyone else did this, if any other franchise did this, there wouldn't be so many people trying to tell you how good it is blindly. Everybody would say that it's garbage. But it's Star Wars, and then Star Wars is getting all this hype and props, and I know they have the money to generate all the hype, so I understand Disney paid $4 billion for Star Wars, so they played it extremely safe, painfully so, in order to make sure that they make back that money, which at this point, anything they do would have this it would have that kind of impact. They would make that kind of money. They'd make close to that kind of money just based on the Star Wars name alone. Don't believe me? Let me show you something just to remind you.
This is a huge deal for me. I was sick from school today.
I want to be the guy coming out of the theater. It was great! You know, that's who I want to be.
I thought there was going to be people here already, and it turned out there wasn't being. I was like, wow, I'm the first one.
Well, it's Star Wars. It's like the original trilogy was just so phenomenal. People have been awaiting this for like 16 years.
It's grabbing history and maybe going with it and becoming part of it and giving a story to our children.
It's going to be one of the many wonders of the world. There are now 8 wonders of the world, one of them being this movie.
We've been waiting since the last one came out for 16 years, so this is a big thing. I mean, we've been waiting a long time. It's time to get back into it. It's the event of the whole thing.
I've been waiting 15 years since Return of the Jedi came out to see the prequel.
There's no way it's going to be a disappointment.
Are there any of you that think this is going to be a lousy movie?
I feel like, I don't know, like it's exciting. It's going to be going to the first show of like Phantom Menace, and I don't know, that's all I can say. Thanks.
10 loved it, 7 liked it or thought it was okay, and 2 are no longer Star Wars fans.
Fantastic.
Go see it as quick as you can.
It was better than all of them.
I think the lightsaber battles were the greatest.
It was good, dude. It was really good.
So worth it. So worth it.
They're gonna love it. They're gonna go nuts. It was amazing.
Couldn't get enough of it. I want to see it again already.
It was amazing. It was everything I thought it was going to be and more.
Non-stop.
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 I can't wait to see it in 3 hours. I'll be lining up straight in the line again.
A lot of action, a lot of noise. It was cool.
I thought it was fantastic. Yeah, it was really good, must say.
I think it's gonna be the hugest thing the hugest thing.
It was intense. It was incredible. I loved it. It was awesome.
We got tickets for the 9 a.m. show. We're going to stick around and see it again.
I thought it was better than Return of the Jedi, personally, so did a good job.
I like the special effects. I thought Lucas did a really good job.
I think that little Anakin Skywalker, and everyone's going to say it, stole that movie.
Thumbs up or thumbs down?
God, I'd put my feet up if I could.
It's fantastic. Good special effects, good story. Lives up to the originals.
A very good movie. I believe the kids are going to love it.
It is worth every minute of it. We've waited 16 years for this moment. An unbiased opinion, how was the film?
I'd give it a definite thumbs up.
It was like new because all the guys were new and you didn't really know how everything fit together before.
So intense. I mean, my heart was beating. It's still beating now. And I just screamed, literally.
What do you think, Cole? With the white?
Yeah.
And who's your favorite?
Datsme.
Pandemonium. Everybody was out there just screaming, yelling. When Lucasfilm logo came up and 20th Century Fox came up, that was the best.
I like Darth Vader.
Oh, okay. He's a little kid. Do you want to marry him?
What?
You want to marry him?
You don't want to marry him?
It'll be a great movie 20 years from now. It'll be part of 6 great movies. Unless the next 2 really suck, but I don't think they will.
What'd you think of it?
I think it was an excellent movie. I think Mr. Lucas did a fabulous job. Special effects were wonderful, and the storyline was wonderful. And we'll probably come back and watch it a couple more times.
Like that long-eared alien dude. I mean, he always messed up, but he ended up helping his army and stuff. I thought it was pretty good.
Thumbs way down.
You didn't like it?
No, I think I deserve a public apology from George Lucas.
Star Wars The Force Awakens. Me and Agent O saw it yesterday. We missed the first, 8 minutes or so we didn't see the opening crawl, and we didn't see what led up to the destruction in the village in which Finn finally makes his decision not to, fully not be a part of the First Order. But I saw everything else. It was kind of a last minute thing because everywhere else it was sold out, and we found a local theater. My older brother called me and told me that we have. He just saw it at one of the closer local theaters, and it's actually it's available. So I was like, hell yeah, I'm gonna go up there and see it. So anyway, The Force Unleashed. We've been waiting all this time. Fans are going ape shit, The hype train is chugging along, plowing through everything. Star Wars is everywhere. A lot of people, I've already seen a bunch of reviews, spoiler, non-spoiler, blah, 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 all of that stuff. And people really, if ever there was something that nostalgia 100% plays a part in how one perceives this thing, Star Wars is definitely that thing. Because if you were around for the prequels, it was the same exact thing. The same shit. Movie hadn't come out yet, but you had been told that it was going to be the greatest thing you had ever seen. The most epic, most amazing thing. And even though the movies were subpar, they still made a ridiculous amount of money. Everybody saw them. And this is kind of the way it works with Star Wars. People align themselves, companies align themselves with, Lucasfilm and all of the people involved. Because they, the movies were uber successful, and they're like, with each one, if we get in, that's a shitload of money that we're getting in on, you know what I mean? And they each got in, and they become, a little bit more powerful. You have a little bit more money, and it's like, this is pretty cool. You know what I'm saying? You get in and you get extra money, or you make that money. I shouldn't say extra money. You make that money, and that's the way the whole thing works. That's the way this train works. But it doesn't always mean that the movies are amazing 100%. There's a lot of things that are done in this film that for people who are already fans of the franchise, they can just look at it and just be like, oh my God, it was so amazing, blah, blah, blah. Just love it to fucking death. And they have no complaints, you know, nothing to complain about. But then for the rest of us, I'm not a Star Wars fan. You know what I mean? Like when I liked the first movies as a kid, and then as I grew up, there were elements that I liked, but I saw lots of other movies that did many of these things better. You know, and I also saw the things that Lucas ripped from to make Star Wars. So it wasn't like it was 100% impressive. You know, like the majority don't grow up watching Ultraman and fucking, you know, tokusatsu and shit like that. So lightsabers and all that stuff, you know, it's all new to certain people, and it was new to the groups that were watching it when it first came out. But I grew up watching this kind of shit. You know what I mean? There's a lot of shows that like they were doing this shit around the same time, so it didn't hit me the way it hits a lot of other people. So like Star Wars doesn't have that place, you know? And I also I never felt like it was for me. You know what I'm saying? Back in the day, because you know, here you have one guy who looked like me, and you know, and the people, a lot of the people around me, I won't say all of them, because like I said, where I grew up, it was a mixture of people. And then you have another guy who's white underneath, but voiced by a black guy, which has always cracked me up. But it works, you know what I mean? Because I understand it's movies and there's magic to that, and I get it. But these are all things that kind of separated me from the fandom, so I'm not really a big fan of Star Wars. What I will say is that when I went back and watched the original films as an adult, before the remastered versions with all the crazy new CG shit put in, when I watched them as an adult, there were things to appreciate. It didn't sway me, though. I didn't 100% become a Star Wars fanatic. The prequels, there were some things in those films I think they did better, especially when it comes to action. It's just that their direction of the action and the direction in which the things went and the emotional content that went with that stuff didn't quite work. So, you know, while I was really happy to actually see martial arts behind guys carrying swords and lances, you know, that train their whole, essentially space monks, space Shaolin monks, I finally get to see them do something that shows this is what you've trained in. This is why you carry this odd weapon in a world where people carry all kinds of guns. You know what I'm saying? Like, you carry a sword and you know what to do with it. So, that was probably the only thing, that and Darth Maul, that I was like, wow. And of course, you know, some of the effects were better because let's just face it, even though practical beats CGI in most cases, there are a lot of things and a lot of uses for CGI that you will never, ever, ever be able to create a practical effect of. And I'm really annoyed at hearing this argument these days. People are like, it's practical. Do you know that 95% of the backgrounds or backdrops you saw, like 25% of that was real and then the rest was CGI? So shut up. You guys don't get it. And you talk, so many people talk with this like, this arrogance and this like, I know how it works. CGI sucks. And they diss movies because they use CGI and they say shit like, you know, the CGI of this looked bad. But then those same people say that the Transformers looked amazing. Someone said Snoke in this film looked horrible. And I'm like, what? What? Nothing in The Force Awakens looked bad. Nothing. Everything looked superb. The movie was expertly cast and it was expertly acted. No one did a shitty job. I mean, people were complaining about Hux, and I didn't really have a problem with Hux. He just seemed like a Nazi type. You know what I mean? What do they call that? Megalomaniacal, you know, evil Nazi type. So he's full of himself. So he puts 150, you know, 300% into his words because he wants you to feel him. He wants his subordinates to feel him. You know what I mean? And that's what I got. You know, he's like a Cobra Commander type. John Boyega and Daisy Ridley. I like the name Daisy. Daisy Ridley and John Boyega were awesome. It was really cool to have a minority and a woman, also a minority when you think about it, because women tend to be the minorities in these kind of things, you know, as a hero, as heroes. It was nice to see them as your heroes. And they had a relationship that grew over the course of the movie without being your typical, like, I have a vagina, I have a penis, so therefore you're going to be my love interest, you know? They did kind of do a reversal on that. They kind of, I was just like, I'm still trying to figure out if it works for me or if it doesn't. Because, and you know my reviews are spoiler full, so, you know, don't be surprised if I spoil shit. Finn is not a Jedi. Finn doesn't become a Jedi, even though he uses a lightsaber at some point. And it really felt like I initially went into this thinking the two of them were going to be the heroes, equally so. You know what I mean? And I guess in some ways you can say that, but there definitely is a difference, and Rey is definitely the hero of the story. Now, Rey is a character that a lot of people seem to have issues with because Rey is a natural born Force prodigy, essentially. Now, if I remember correctly, Darth Vader was too. And no one had problems with Jake Lloyd and his terrible performance when the films came out. They also didn't have problems with the idea that a character who was so badass to begin with, just because of the persona that they developed for Darth Vader, needed to have a backstory in which he was the perfect Force user. Nobody had an issue with that. But now a girl shows up. Not only is she going to be the next in line to become a Jedi, but she has natural Force powers because of who she's related to. And all the fanboys have their freaking Depends in a bunch. Or their freaking, you know, their adult diapers in a bunch. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're all getting pissed off about such a trivial piece. As if there is no such thing as a prodigy. There are martial arts prodigies. There are sports prodigies. There are science prodigies. Just people whose minds are in tune to this particular thing and they excel at it with little work. It's a real thing. It's a real phenomenon. Why is this an issue in a galaxy far, far, far the fuck away? Why are people really getting their shit in a bunch because of this? Just relax. People were, it was weird because I watched a video that Max Landis posted about how people were reacting to the fact that he called her a Mary Sue. You have the fanboys that hate the fact that there's a female main character that are siding with him and saying, you know, he's on their side, even though that's not what he's saying. And you have the ones that are kind of like the super feminist, you know, like, I'm going to attack you because you said something I don't agree with. Not that what I said doesn't make sense. You know, they didn't listen. They just heard that he had a contrary opinion and it sounds like it's possibly anti-woman, so let's attack him, you know? In reality, he's saying that the way that it was portrayed in the film, it made her appear to just magically be more powerful to him. And because she was so good at that, and she was so good at fighting, and she was so good at everything, piloting a ship, she didn't need anybody's help. It was like she was a Mary Sue, much like Batman. And, you know, people don't like hearing that. And I guess to some degree she is a Mary Sue. But at the same time, I think what they did was she lives a lifestyle where she would have to be very capable and would have to do things. She'd have to rely on herself. Maybe she didn't start out that way. More than likely, she didn't start out that way. But she would have to begin that way. And that's why she's so proficient at shit. Like, they don't tell you that's the first time that she flew a ship. You assume that. You know what I'm saying? You could tell by her where she lives. She's got a helmet. She studied up. People said she didn't know anything about the Force, when in the same movie she says that she heard stories and she knows about the Jedi. She knows about the Force. She knows about Luke Skywalker. But she thought these were legends and not really, they weren't real. So, like, a lot of people are selectively hearing things and selectively picking out and choosing what they want to pick and choose to make this not work for them, when all they have to do is actually listen to what's said in the film, and you would totally get that they do flesh out what kind of character Rey is. Then on the flip, you have people who hate Finn for reasons that range from him being black to him killing, like, defecting from the stormtroopers because he doesn't want to kill, and then he turns around and kills stormtroopers, which is kind of weird. You know, you'd think he'd be more of a pacifist, or he'd be more of like a I'll shoot him in the legs or some shit like that. But it just doesn't seem like it would work in the framework of this kind of story. So it's like he doesn't want to kill innocent people, but he has no problem killing those who kill others for the sake of doing so. It's strange that they didn't put the conflict in there that maybe the others don't see that what they're doing is wrong, and that he may have developed friendships with these other guys, and when he defected, you know, he didn't want to go back and fight them, so that's part of the reason why he was so hesitant to do what he was doing. It seemed more like he wholeheartedly didn't like anything about being part of the First Order. Like, he sees them as completely, fully, wholly evil, and he didn't want to be part of that. So, and you get that quickly from the way things happen. I mean, he tells you that saving a dude from being tortured to death is the right thing to do. Why? Because he's tired of seeing him do evil shit. You know what I mean? Like, that's not in his spirit. That's not in his character. You know, some people are destined to do other shit, and that's what he was. He's the character that, you know, he's part of a giant whole, a faceless organization, and he happened to be like, fuck this shit. I'm gonna go do other stuff because I think there's a better way. And he finds that way. People complained about him holding his own against Kylo Ren. Really? He got his ass throttled. I mean, let's be real. He hit Kylo Ren like once. And Kylo Ren himself was not very good. Like, not very good when it came to using a sword. He was really good at his force powers and stuff, but not very good at using a sword, which was an issue. You know, it falls back in line with all my issues with the combat in the film. There should have been better combat, you know? Even for people who don't know how to fight with sabers per se, they're stormtroopers. They're in the military. You always learn, you know, some kind of close quarters, hand to hand, something, so that you can defend yourself long enough to get back to a gun, if that's what your primary weapon is, and defend yourself that way. So for him to not be better at fighting kind of sucked, because it's like, how could you and yours take down the, you know, the rebels and stuff if you can barely defend yourself on a very basic level, you know? When he had a gun in his hand, though, he was awesome. So, you know, there were little things that were inconsistent about the characterizations, but a lot of the things that I'm hearing the most complaints about, especially surrounding our main heroes, it's people just not paying attention. And, you know, it goes back to things I've said before. I said it in the intro, and I'm saying it again. That's why you guys are the consumers, and that's why they are supposed to make these things for you. You know, I mean, they didn't do the best job, but, you know, this is the way it just turned out this time, you know? So the cinematography, the acting, the casting, the tone, everything was there. I was really cool with all those things. The action, physical action in most cases, like when there weren't many fights. So when people did fight, it was kind of grimy. It wasn't really like blow your mind, you know, this is space in the far, 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 far fucking future, you know, far in a galaxy far, far away. You have every opportunity, and you should take any opportunity to blow us away with physical expression, especially in combat. They didn't really do anything. They didn't break any new ground. And I'm kind of sad about that, because you had a new lightsaber. You had Iko Uwais and Yaya Ruihan involved in the choreography as well as making cameos in the film. And for those of you who don't know who they are the main fighters in, or actors / fighters in the Raid and the Raid 2. And as well as Merentau, and there's another one. I don't think I've seen it yet. Well, Yaya Ruihan has moved on to do other stuff too, by himself, away from the stunt team. But the point is, these guys are expert fighters. They know lots of different weapons. They're masters of Silat and Savat. And it's kind of strange that you have this kind of talent in your film. You have fighters, you know what I mean? Like characters that are gonna fight, and you don't really utilize that, you know? And I've heard reviews where people said, oh, they weren't flipping around. It's a fucking fantasy action drama, you know, or action adventure drama. The fuck, why would they not? They're space monks and space ninjas and space blah blah blah. People can fly around on jetpacks, but flipping is where you draw the line. You know what I mean? People can choke you with magic, but flipping and spinning your sword around is where you draw the line. What the fuck is wrong with people? It just, they didn't push in terms of martial arts at all. At all. Like, anybody listening right now, you could recreate the fight scenes in this film. There was nothing amazing about the fights at all. What's another thing? The now on the plus side, the freaking space, the battles when they get airborne in a ship, whoo, these battles blow away. You want to talk usage of CGI? These space battles blow away the early ones. They blow them out the fucking box. They're amazing. I mean, it's literally like when you look at Ace Combat 1 and you look at Ace Combat Assault Horizon. It's just no comparison when it comes to the presentation of this battle and the framework and the way everything is shot. I mean, there's continuous shots where you just see ships flying in the foreground, in the background, you know, blasting them, flying through the explosions, dipping and dodging in caverns, and no cuts. It's just continuous. So you feel like you're there. Camera pulling into the cockpit so you can see from the pilot's point of view. I mean, the shit was amazing to the point where I was like, I want, like, if Star Wars is all this and struggle fighting when you're out of your ship, I'll take it. You know what I mean? Like, because if we can get a whole, like a bunch of movies like this with that kind of dog fighting and shit, then I'll forget all about Jedis and stuff, because I'll want to root for the pilots, you know? TIE fighters were screaming through the fucking air and through space, you know? And then the X-Wings. Before I was like, X-Wings are kind of meh. It was all about the TIE fighter because they were dominant. And that's another thing I'm going to get into plot-wise and tone-wise of this film versus the old films. You know, TIE fighters were awesome. And the X-Wings were like, meh. But in this, everything is awesome, but there definitely was a difference between the amazing pilots and the okay pilots. And I loved it. Poe Dameron. I didn't know shit about the character. You know, I just saw his poorly done Star Wars black figure. And I was just like, you know, Poe Dameron. Poe Dameron is a G. I don't know how else to... He is a top tier ninja. That's all I can say. You put him in a vehicle, miracles will happen. This dude is like... He's like a G.I. Joe. He's like what I envision Ace to be like if we got a live action G.I. Joe. And I love it. Freaking love it. I was like, wow. Now, the good things, I'm gonna talk a bunch about the good things, and I'm gonna jump all over the place because this is kind of how I've been processing this film. Rey is a cool character, not only because she represents the first time that a female is the lead protagonist in the film, but the fact that they fleshed out some cool things about her so that they didn't have to actually like serve it to you on a platter. A lot of times in today's films, the audiences seem to be dense, and they're so dense to the how do I put this? They're so dense that they miss obvious things, and they miss, you know, subtlety. So things have to be like beaten into the audience, you know. Just look at Transformers. With Rey in this film, they just showed you based on where she lived, what she did before she went home, and they repeated it a couple times, so you get this is the routine. This is how she has lived. And they didn't really go any further than that. You know what I mean? They didn't have to. The only thing they left secret was her parents. You don't know who her parents are. There's a quick, well, it's not quick, but it's a portion of a flashback, a very intense flashback with a series of events that ends with you seeing someone leave Rey as a child with one of the inhabitants of Jakku. And you see the ship that they came in obviously fly off. So you get the impression that she was left there And throughout the film, she keeps saying she has to get home because she's waiting for those same people, her parents, to come back and get her, as if someone told her that was what was going to happen. So she believed it. And that's the only little bit of information that you really get that's contrary to, or that's different from the day-to-day that you see her go through. And I thought that was really cool. You see that she's a scavenger. You see she sells the parts that she picks for money so that she can, or for food, I'm sorry. And, you know, some days she gets more, some days she gets less. But either way, this is what she does. Every day, all the time. You can tell she's a compassionate person, and you also can tell that once she has determined or decided on a course of action or something, she's going to follow that shit through, which is some awesome characterization to give your first female lead. Now, this is not the first time in Star Wars history that, like, and I'm talking like books and games and all that, that, you know, you had a female protagonist, because there's lots of stories where, you know, you had Mara Jade and you had what's the other, the Mandalorian chick, I forgot her name, but you've had others, you know, that were the main character, but those weren't all official. Those were all, I mean, some of them I guess you can consider official, but they were expanded universe. So like some of that shit now, that shit definitely doesn't count, but back then only certain types of fans would actually go and seek those stories out. So like with this being in the film, it's solidified as a thing. It's real. This is how it is. I really dug Finn. The fact that Finn didn't have a real name. He had like, you know, FN 2 something 8. I can't remember what it was. And Poe Dameron gives him the name Finn. I like the fact that the costume that you see him, the getup he's wearing, the black and the dirty boots and all that, and then the jacket, it's Poe Dameron's jacket, but that's the black is what's underneath the stormtrooper uniform. And then the gun that the black series figure came with is actually a gun that's given to him by Han Solo, which is pretty cool. I love the fact that he just had an epiphany, like, you know, this shit's not right. Even though he was snatched up from a very young age and trained and brainwashed to believe that this cause is just, he doesn't believe that it's just. He sees the wrong in it and he wants to leave. He has like this real, like if anything was realistic in this film, it was Finn's reactions and his motivation and the way he kind of has this second guessing type of attitude towards himself while he's doing these things that he knows he should do. It's exactly how you know it feels in real life. I'm speaking from my own experience. In reality, it feels like, you know, there's all these big things sometimes that you have to do because you're going against the grain. In some cases, I don't know about, you know, everyone else. I know a lot of my ninjas might be able to identify with this because we don't fall into the same categories as the majority of those who now are called, you know, geeks and nerds and shit. We like what we like and we always have, but we never did it to fit in. So, you know, had nerds and geeks and shit not become the mainstream, we would have still been this. This is who we are, you know? And many of us, we fit into the category because we like these things, but then if you look outside of that, we don't fit into it because we have bomb-ass wives, or we got cars, or we take care of our families, or, you know, we portion out our time so that, you know, there are days where we get to completely geek out, and a lot of our time is spent doing all the other stuff, you know? Like I spend a lot of time with my family, and then I geek out when I can so that I can make these videos and so that I can, you know, get into all this stuff. So, and this is how I always have been. So I don't think I'm not a stereotypical, you know, geek and nerd and shit like that. Even back when I was younger, I made time for girls, like a lot of time for girls, you know what I mean? And I'm not going to go into the details, but I'm just saying these are the things that separate us. So when we make a choice to do something, a lot of times it's going against the grain. Societally speaking, and the way everyone else thinks, what we're doing is not something we should do. You know what I mean? This is not what, you know, these folks do. Black people, white people, Asian people. This is not what they do. So you're going against the grain. So in Finn's case, he makes this huge decision because he's a stormtrooper. No matter what color, because remember, You had clone troopers, and then you had stormtroopers, and the stormtroopers were all humans that they forced to enlist after the failure of having the clone army. Well, I won't, the failures that happened with the clone army. But anyway, he decides to go against the only life he's known. That's a big deal. And at times he's scared. He doesn't think he can do it, but he keeps going. You know what I mean? And you see this continuously until he's knocked out of the fight for the last portion of the film. And it's pretty cool to see him so convicted to the point where he's just like, fuck, I'm going to give my life for this shit because this is the way it is. You know, even when he didn't think he could do it, he was afraid to go against the First Order. And then he still did it because he had something was at stake. You know what I mean? Someone else's life was at stake. And he was like, fuck it, I got to save my friend, or at least help save my friend, or try to save my friend. So, you know, I dig that. I think that was really cool. Definitely a good, different kind of hero from what we've been getting in the last couple of years when they dumb down the heroes. You know what I mean? Like, you have those badasses like, you know, your Schwarzeneggers and your Stallones, you know what I mean, and all that shit. But then you have those heroes that are kind of like more so an everyman. They do what they do because the situation called for it, and that's exactly what you got with Finn, and I really dug that. We run into Han Solo and Chewbacca. Chewbacca is my second favorite thing in all of Star Wars. I just love the fact that you got this big-ass bipedal dog bear thing, and they put Han and Chewie through a little bit of some shit. You know, Han actually dies in this movie. You find out Kylo Ren is Han and Leia's son, and he was trained by Luke, but he went nuts and destroyed the whole shit. You know, probably killed a bunch of the other trainees, and then went on to join the dark side. And maybe this was the thing that put a strain on, and I think they do allude to this in the film, put a strain on Leia and Han's relationship, and they kind of split for a long period of time. And then when we come into the story and they finally see each other, they haven't seen each other in a while. Kylo Ren was interesting. From all the promo, you know, images and the different things that we saw, I thought he was going to be way more powerful than he was. You know, he was kind of tough and kind of intimidating when he had everything, all his gear on. But then when he took his mask off, you see that he's still real human. Like, you know, usually, you know, Sith apprentice and you know, dark side practitioners, when they give in, and I guess he hadn't really fully given in, but when they learned to do some of the shit that he was doing, their faces would be all jacked up, and they cover up because they need to cover up the pieces they're using to cover certain parts of their body. It's parts of their body that's either disfigured or damaged or something like that. He just wears the mask to look like a badass. And people were asking, why does he wear the mask? Why the fuck does Batman wear the mask? To hide his fucking identity. Someone might know that he's related to Han Solo. Also, like, we're not all given badass faces where we look so mean that we can just scare people with a glance. But you hide behind a badass looking mask and then you can do that. That's what masks were fucking created for. Why do people ask such dumb questions about shit that it's mainstream and it's popular? You know what I mean? Like, it's a fucking film. He's wearing a goddamn costume. You asking questions about his fucking mask for? He's wearing that getup because it looks badass. I mean, what the fuck? I was really like, really? People are asking this shit now? Anyway, he was an interesting character. He had like a lot of the Force stuff down, but he's not that good of a fighter, which is weird. Because, like, as far as I know, and as far as probably most of you know, how do you get trained by two masters and not get the fighting part down? How can you be so angry and not have the fighting part down? Like, this is where I was frustrated because I'm an action junkie and that's the part that I want perfect. You know, like the whole movie, you had your dog fights that were awesome. You had your, you know, the surgical strike portions that were really cool. But then the fighting was just like subpar, and it's like, really? You could have done so much more with this. I mean, maybe they're against all the artistry that went into the fights in the prequels. So they want to try and distance themselves from that as much as possible. I don't know. I was disappointed in the fighting. Ren was not what I was expecting from. He just wasn't what I was expecting. You know, all the Sith before him, all the evil, you know, the dark side folks. Like I said, I'm not a fan, so you know, you can kiss my ass if you're pissed off at the fact that I'm calling them dark side folks instead of calling them, you know, Sith lords or you know, dark Jedi or some shit like that, whatever they're called. All the bad guys in black with red lightsabers that came before this guy, they all did better. They were all better combatants than Kylo. Kylo, though, looked like, from everything leading up to the fights, he just looked like he was so strong that, like, I mean, he's carrying a fucking claymore, a fucking lightsaber claymore. Like, what the fuck? I was expecting him to just be, I mean, and I guess he was pretty strong, but I was expecting his style, there to be more style, you know, like a little bit of finesse, but the meter leans more towards power. Captain Phasma. People are paying $100 for that fucking figure. And she was in the movie for like 5 minutes. I shit you not. I don't know anything about her more now than I did before I went into the film. We have no fucking clue what's up with Phasma. And I think that shit's funny. And this is what I mean when I say the hype train is plowing through shit, you know? So Phasma, I mean, she looked cool. She sounded cool. She seemed like someone that, you know, is going to beat all kinds of ass when the time comes. And I'm hoping that there is a escalation as the films go on, you know? But let's see, who else did we have? We had Snoke, played by Andy Serkis. He just seemed like the same type of villain as, you know, the Emperor. It's like you always have that guy that's behind the scenes pulling all the strings. I don't understand how you can, you know, there's in other reviews I've watched, people were judging him and saying, oh, he was corny and he was this and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, how do you make that assumption, or how do you get to that point, given the fact that these characters fill a role, and this role is always played the same way? He didn't bring anything new to the table, because like I said, the newest thing in this film, compared to all the other Star Wars, is that you got war, actual war amongst the stars, like full on war. Like it's not as crazy and as chaotic as Episode 3, but it's still warfare. You know what I'm saying? You have dogfights, you have people sneaking into places, setting charges, blowing shit up. You know what I mean? Like it's what we've seen before. Just like, you know, with G.I. Joe, you got your Rattlers versus your Sky Strikers. Jesus. And you know, you got the iconic bad guy vehicle and the iconic good guy vehicles fighting in the air and doing all kinds of cool shit. You had that in spades. But I don't get how that stuff makes sense, but Snoke doesn't. He was exactly like every villain in the Star Wars franchise that is behind the scenes, puppet mastering everything. So there's not much to talk about. Andy Serkis, his performance was impeccable. His performance is always fucking impeccable. In a lot of movies, he's like the best thing in the fucking movie. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of times he's at least one of the best things if it's a good movie. But if it's a bad movie and he's in it, he's awesome. In games, he's awesome. It's like Andy Serkis is just a really fucking amazing actor. Moving along. Han and Chewie, I started talking about them and then I went off on a tangent. Han was really cool. Harrison Ford was moving a lot more than I thought he was capable of doing. I thought, you know, based on what I've seen in other movies, he looked like he always looks like in his old age, like he's about to die. When he played Indy for the latest Indy movie, Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull, he looked like he was about to die. He looked so old, you know. In this movie, he looked like he was in good shape, moving around, and even the way he acted, he still had that kind of youthful spark to him, which was pretty cool. I like that. Chewbacca, like I said, my second favorite thing in all of Star Wars, next to Darth Maul, and I don't know why I don't have a figure of him. He's so easy to find because he's always fucking peg warming everywhere. But they were cool. Like I said, they killed him off. They kill off not Chewbacca. They kill off Han. And it kind of was like once it's revealed who Kylo is, you already know that's coming. You look at the fact that Homeboy is really old. It's like, okay, yeah, they're going to kill him off. Leia shows up again. She's now a general and not a princess. And people are like, why is she not a princess anymore? Because they fucking blew up Alderaan. The fuck happened to you? How you be a hardcore Star Wars fan and not even pay attention to where she grew up? But whatever. She was in the movie. Carrie Fisher, she looked good for, an older, thicker version of, I don't even say thicker, just like chubbier version of Princess Leia. I mean, she got old. I mean, that's what happens. But she still looked good. She still was snarky as ever, and like, I don't know, she seemed like it's just more of the same. But she didn't really have a big part in the film. She was just there for nostalgia, Those are mostly the folks worth talking about. Overall, though, because like I said, I'm not a huge fan of Star Wars, so I'm not going to go into every single character. Poe Dameron was cool. He was really cool. I like his attitude. I think that was Oscar Isaac that was playing him. He's another good actor. I don't have problems with him in movies. Usually he's one of the good things. I like that he was real snarky also, and that a lot of his scenes he was sarcastic, but then at the same time he was lively. It wasn't all reserved. I hate that in space action dramas where like Star Trek and stuff, and the Trekkies are gonna get mad at me, but I don't care. This is one of the things I didn't like about old Star Trek, and I like this with the Abrams films. They don't feel as human in the old ones. They feel so stiff and like personalityless, or they lack it in the personality department. And in the new ones, they actually seem like people you just have this amazing job. And some of them are super intelligent. You know what I'm saying? Like, I like that. That makes sense. I get bored when everybody is so unrealistically focused all the time. And so, like, everything they say is tempered. They rarely show any emotion. And it's like, yeah, no. I don't care what you think about the military. I don't care what you think you know about science. There's no need for you to not have any emotion while you do this thing you love so much. I mean, look at Neil deGrasse Tyson. All this emotion towards what he does because he loves to do this shit. You know what I mean? You would have emotion, you would show feeling. There it is. I like that in this world, this version of Star Wars, it's not just the main characters that have emotion, like a full range of emotion. It's like everybody. Even the villains seem a little bit more, I don't know, I don't want to say comical, or no, I don't want to say like a caricature, but I mean, I guess that would be the appropriate word. They seem more like archetypes that you have seen before, and usually the way that they are presented is a little bit different. You know what I'm saying? And that's what separates them from the previous versions of these archetypes that you've seen before. And I like that. I think it's a really good use of a good way of introducing these characters. The movie does follow many of the beats of A New Hope, which is it's sad because you think that a story that's 30 years in the making, you would have other places to go. You would have things to add to the overall meat and potatoes of this franchise, and they didn't do anything new, really. It's just sad. But what I will say, and the meat and potatoes of my feelings on the film is that, like, you see all these ads and all this merchandising and all this shit, and you see what a conglomerate Star Wars is. And then the movie came out, we watched it, and I was like, when it was done. I didn't feel that, like, you're going to hear all these reviews that are colored with nostalgia. I mean, like, fucking splattered Jackson Pollock of pure nostalgia. But the actual film that you're going to sit down and watch, it doesn't break any new ground. So you're going to be like, most people are going to be like, huh, and they're going to feel like, oh, I got to go see it again because I missed stuff and blah, blah, blah. But then you're going to realize that it's just that they didn't do anything that epic in this. I mean, they make a third Death Star. If it didn't work the first 2 times, why are you going to make another one? And this one was bigger than the last one. And it's like, if they blew up the small ones, they're going to blow up the big ones. Like, it's bigger. It's going to be a little bit easier for them. And it was. It was a cool thing to see. I kept calling it the Death Egg Zone because that's what it looked like. And I mean, I know that's what the Death Egg Zone actually is, you know, a reference to, and it's copying off of, you know, Star Wars. But yeah, to the fact that they borrowed something like that, something iconic like that, and made another one in the Star Wars film. Come on, if any other movie did that, people would be like, no imagination, blah, blah, blah. But Star Wars does it, and everybody's like, oh my God. Just sucking them off like it's the greatest shit since sliced bread. And it's like, you know, that's an area where you could have gone in another direction. You could have come up with something else. You could have come up with a fucking, like, Titan-class ship that had the same capabilities. My God. You could have come up with the same, you know, a ship with the same capabilities that was ginormous, like bigger than the Star Destroyers and shit. And that could have been your, you know, insert death machine that we need to stop. You know, you didn't have to be another planet-sized, like, base that, you know, has a gun inside of it. So I just honestly was like, there are a lot of good things, because like I said, nothing looks bad. No performance was crappy. You know, the movie's well put together. It's just there's things in the movie that if you've seen all the other Star Wars stuff, there's no reason why you should be making this much noise. You know what I mean? Like, so much noise. Because it's not really that much different. It's just done better than the last 3 that we had. You know what I'm saying? So it definitely makes up for the shitty prequels. And since the bar was set extremely low with those prequels, it doesn't quite push for epicness, you know, because I was expecting epicness, you know, like when you watch Clone Wars sometimes, and I've only seen a couple episodes of Clone Wars. I'm in the process of watching the whole thing. There's lots of epic moments in that show where you're like, damn. I mean, there's stuff obviously that's kind of like, really? You went in this direction? But there's a lot of epic stuff that happens where you're like, holy shit, that was awesome. In this, there were awesome moments. You know, there were little things. A lot of Kylo's use of the Force was like, damn. But like overall, as a whole, it didn't really do anything to make me be like, oh my God, you know, like I'm freaking, you know, jizzing on myself trying to, you know, explaining to you how good this shit is. It just, nothing was that good in the film so that I could go that crazy about this. So, but I recommend it. Check it out. You definitely, everyone needs the stink of the prequels washed off of them. And be careful with the hype machine. Beware the hype machine. I'm not telling you, like, don't watch it. It's a movie. Movies are entertainment. Go be entertained. You know what I mean? You'll be entertained. But don't believe all the hype. I think when movies like this come out, they spend so much money on it that they have to make sure that they recoup in some way. And they already did with just merchandising. But now the movie is out. People want so bad for there to be a good new Star Wars that they're going to spread, you know, they're going to make it seem better than it really is. And, you know, when you watch it, you'll see too much is borrowed for you to say, oh, this is amazing. You've seen it. You've already seen it. There's a little bit of misdirection, but the stuff that they could have improved on greatly, they didn't really do anything. There's a lot less CG aliens in this film, whereas, you know, in the past, They would use practical effects for the majority of the, different inhabitants of the different worlds, and everything from puppets to people in suits to animatronics. And they did a lot of that here too, but there was a lot of CG on top of that stuff. CG overlay, like for expressions and, things like that, for syncing up the mouth with the voice. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's all stuff that most people don't even fucking know. Or like a lot of the backgrounds, like I said in the beginning, they were also like 25% actual place, and then 75% is CG overlay. But it works. All of it works. I have no problem with how they achieve their goal. I have problems with the lack of imagination when it came to the actual combat. Stormtroopers were actually really hardcore in this. The First Order does not give a fuck. They're like, everything that was wrong with the regular Stormtroopers is right with the First Order. So be prepared for that when you go to check this out. So, long story short, it's worth checking out. I don't think the hype is accurate, but it's definitely worth checking out. I think you guys will enjoy, at least you'll be entertained at the very least by all of the things that go on in the film. I don't think it's for everyone. If you're not a fan of Star Wars, I don't think this will make you a fan of Star Wars. But like I said, if you want to enjoy a really cool, well done space opera, here you go. This is the one that we're going to get. It does make me, it didn't fully let me down. And so, I don't want you guys to think that I'm saying that. It makes me hopeful for all of what's coming, because this was a decent, kind of opening, like a prologue to the series, to what it's going to be. At the end, we do finally see Luke. That's why you didn't see him in any of the trailers, except for in that short, like, you see him put his hand on R2. You see him at the end, and it was kind of funny because, his expression, Luke Hamill is a great actor, but his expression was like, it went from, shit, she found me, to like, I got a fart, to like, okay, fine, I'm going to have to train you. I mean, it was just strange, like, I don't know. There were a lot of, I guess he was channeling a lot of emotions, but, like I said, no performance was shitty. It's just, there were little things that were, kind of funny unintentionally so. And, I usually am one of those guys who, that's the stuff I pick up on while I'm looking at all the other stuff. But anyway, like I said, the movie's good. You'll enjoy it. I don't think it breaks new ground, but it is entertaining. Definitely entertaining. Lots of good actors, good performances, great special effects. It's just a good movie. I mean, Abrams owned, what he did more than what people thought he was capable of. People hated him for Mission Impossible, and they hated him for the Star Wars films, and now they're sucking his dick because he did a Star Wars film and he didn't go down the route that the prequels did. So anyway, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I'm Strydent. I hope you guys enjoyed. As always, get at me in the comments. Argue amongst yourselves if you want. And argue with me if you want. And I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace outside.